David Ferguson, the honorary chief English editor of Foreign Languages Press under the China International Communications Group, has dedicated over 18 years to bridging China and the world through cultural and linguistic expertise. Awarded the Chinese Government Friendship Award and the inaugural Orchid Award for promoting cross-cultural understanding, he has edited pivotal political literature, including government white papers, and authored books like Nantong Tales and China's Rural Revitalization. His work embodies a commitment to authentic storytelling, showcasing China's resilience and inclusive progress. So, David, let's talk about your Gansu trip. During your first visit back in 2020, right? You've mentioned that in Dingxi or Longnan, the locals, if they want to reach a city, it normally takes about 3 days. But now it only takes an hour to do that.
Specifically in that context, I was talking about Longnan. There's been a huge building program of highways in Longnan. Longnan's a very mountainous region. So a lot of the highways, a huge percentage, maybe up to 75%, is actually going through tunnels in the mountains. And seeing the infrastructure that's in place now, you can imagine how difficult it must have been in the past when you had to cross mountains, cross valleys, and there wasn't a highway. The road went up and over or round. Another specific example comes from Bulango, where I met a man called Ma Dauda, who was involved in a sheep rearing cooperative. He spoke to me about the fact that he had only attended school up to grade 3.
In primary,
grade 3, because that his trip to school involved a 1.5 hour trek across mountain paths. That situation has completely changed now in terms of education in rural areas in Gansu, and it makes a huge difference to youth prospects, and it makes a huge difference to economic development.
Since we've talked about the book, I've noticed that in the book you mentioned that the changes in Gansu involves a lot of the mindset changes.
Take another example again from Bulango, and again someone called Ma Myra. She was a very, very strong and vital lady who was making a huge contribution to all sorts of initiatives in Bulango. The common standard home was basically a mud building, beaten earth floors, and that was the society that she lived in. When I encountered her and her husband, they were living in a modern house that had been part of a development for upgrading of residential buildings, and she had completely turned her life around from being in the subservient role of a woman, but being someone who was making a huge contribution. She travelled to Shandong to study, she travelled to Beijing to study, she was familiar with things like socialism with Chinese characteristics and Xi Jinping thought, and she was a perfect example of the types of individuals who exist in these communities. And one of the great successes of targeted poverty alleviation is that it's identified these individuals and it's given them the opportunity to realise the potential, not only changing their material existence, not only changing their accommodation and their work, but changing the way they see themselves and the way they see their ability to contribute to society. Very, very encouraging experience.
Are there any humorous events happening during your visit in Gansu?
One amusing incident that did occur, again it was in Bulango, which is quite a remote rural area, and I went to visit the local primary school. And the teacher was a very active and positive person. So she had arranged for the children to put on a little entertainment for me, and what they did was they performed and they sang song. And it was interesting, it was funny because it was around about the 31st of December that I was in Wollongong. And the song that they performed for me is actually a Scottish song.
Oh, really?
It's very well known in China. It's called Auld Lang Syne in Scottish. And the tune is la 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 la. So it's very well known in China. Of course, the little primary school kids didn't know that the origin of the song is Scottish. So it just so happened that a Scotsman was visiting Wollongong on the 31st of December, which is one of the times that we always sing Auld Lang Syne for the New Year.
That must be a big surprise.
I found it very entertaining. Of course, I explained to the teacher that it's a Scottish song, and she explained to the kids. So I think they were very pleased with themselves. And it made me feel very, very welcome.
Has your experience in Gansu actually reshaped your understanding of the development? I mean, for example, does the true development now mean prioritizing the human well-being, or it should be balancing ecological preservation and economic growth?
Yeah, I think, again, rather than reshaping, I would see it as a confirmation, because I had read and translated, or read and edited a lot of material about China's development. And one of the things that has always been of importance to me is the five-sphere development, which is that development should be open, it should be green, it should be innovative, it should be coordinated, and it should be shared. And every single one of these is a form of people-centered development. Open development means sharing not only in China, but opening up to the world and allowing other people to benefit from China's development. Green development, you've just mentioned, giving people a beautiful physical environment to live in is very much a people-centered initiative. Innovative development encourages people, it sparks their creativity, it allows them to express themselves as individuals. Coordinated development means that development will be balanced between what are now the prosperous areas and the areas which were slower to develop. And so coordinated development, very much people-centered, and then shared development, probably the most important one of all, in that everyone should benefit from the fruits of development in a fair and just way. And the time I spent in Gansu, obviously looking at poverty alleviation and rural revitalization, fundamentally that is about shared development, about making sure that nobody gets left behind, about making sure that everybody rises and finding ways to make sure that they continue to rise.
That's the best explanation I've heard. Thanks for your time, and thanks a lot.
Good to see you again.
For your sharing.
I look forward to seeing you in Gansu.